have a goal with it, and my main goal is this is how high the bar is. I'm not trying to convince anybody that Trump is great and you should have voted Trump. The bar is Trump voters aren't ontologically evil. That's the bar. That's what we're jumping to here. And why do we have to do that? Why do we have to do that this week? Because we had a great big optically terrible speech from the current president of the United States demonizing a whole voter base.
What? Earth person? Earth person. Oh. Earth person? Oh. Checkbook. Book say Earth person tall.
Yep. Half a second where it looked like Sam Harris was becoming sane again, where he retweeted himself from a year ago saying it's great that we have adults in the room. And then during the Iran thing, he's like, I'm eating these words one by one.
We still have comedy, though. We still have great comedy out there. There's always rambling Joe Biden. What the fuck? Joe says shit that even people with Tourette's go, no. No. What is going on? Joe is like your uncle who's on a new drug and hasn't got the dosage right. I'm proud to work with Barack America. He's not a superhero, you idiot. Come here. When FDR was on television, there was no TV back then. Come here, Joe. Sit down.
Pretty outrageous stuff, but it's just par for the course. It's just that, but that's all the hoax stuff. The Gish Gallop on that one, not all of it, man. I mean, we could do 7 hours on all of it, but the flip side of it is what is true of Biden. You know, and a lot of the stuff goes back decades, but just to Gish Gallop on through it. The guy lied about college. He lied about where he went to college. He lied about what his grades were in college. Said that he graduated top of his class from law school.
Explaining to do. The new questions stem from taped remarks of Biden during an April campaign appearance in New Hampshire.
I went to law school on a full academic scholarship, the only one in my class to have a full academic scholarship. Went back to law school and, in fact, ended up in the top half of my class. I was the outstanding student in the political science department at the end of my year. I graduated with 3 degrees from undergraduate school and 165 credits, only needed 123 credits.
Biden now concedes he did not graduate in the top half of his law school class, that he does not have 3 degrees from college, and that he was not named outstanding political science student in college.
Newsweek says Biden actually went to school on a half scholarship, ended up near the bottom of his class, and won only 1 degree, not 3.
Joe Biden ranked 76th in a class of 85 at the University of Syracuse Law School. I mean, this guy comes off this whole thing as a flyweight.
Now Biden says Newsweek is right. His memory had failed him.
Joseph
And
in his defense, he might think that some of these things are true.
No,
this was 1989.
Those lies came out the first time he ran for president.
Yeah.
The first.
I was going for the low hanging fruit of a dementia.
He plagiarized speeches terribly. Like if you go on, and this was all the stuff. This is why he was a joke in 1989.
Now, on the political scene, one of the Democratic candidates is Senator Joseph Biden. Have you seen the problem he's been having? He went around and made a speech, and apparently he quoted I think it was a British politician, took his speech and kind of paraphrased it as his own. And then the press got on him, and then he was charged also with taking part of Bobby Kennedy's speeches. And Biden says, not to worry, he reassured his staff. He said, we have nothing to fear but fear itself.
There's even stuff of like Robin Williams ripping on what a loser he was on some.
For a while, he was the leading Democratic candidate, and for the 90 election, and or whatever the 88. I can't get my years right, but anyway, that one, the one that Daddy Bush won, And it was this plagiarism scandal that broke, and that was when left-wing
he plagiarized some of his papers, and he's
slightly
plagiarized
honest.
some of his speeches. Like some of his speeches were word for word old speeches, and they were like
Yeah.
talking about being in
Did you ever watch
sports.
Parks and Rec?
Yeah, I did.
So there's that ongoing joke where Leslie Knope has a huge crush on Joe Biden, and she finally gets to meet him. And I remember even then, like wondering, like, why is Joe Biden? Like he's like by now he was old. He's like he's a fucking dope. Maybe that's the joke. I don't know. But she treats him like he's a rock star.
No, they try to do that. They try to signal boost the people and act like there's something. I remember when he first got his first vaccine and he came out in a leather jacket, and there was all these old ladies all over Twitter and saying, "Call me crazy, is that kind of hot?" Because he like whipped off his leather jacket and showed his arm. I'm dead serious. You can look at all over Twitter that all these sudden old lady blue check marks were saying, "Isn't that kind of hot?" They tried to do this thing, like if him driving around in a convertible.
I used to think I was a pretty good driver. I didn't get a chance to flash shift in the second. I was afraid I'd go through those guys.
Tomorrow morning, we're talking about cars and what car you'd like to see come back.
Well, women are attracted
here's
to
my
physical and
QAnon
social
hat,
power.
or my conspiracy theory hat. Was it on purpose? Was there Marvel collusion with this election since old man Captain America looked like Joe Biden?
Yep. There's a bunch of them where they try to paint him as sexy, but that's part of what that whole meme came out. You guys saw the whole Dark Brandon meme?
Yeah, and then he made a whole evil speech out of it.
So one of the first positive memes they had going for him was him dropping this Dark Brandon crap. Like it was like showing like he was like Emperor Palpatine and that he was beating up and kicking the Republican butts. And it was never a good meme because you're kind of on the wrong side in those memes, but a lot of the lefties thought it was funny. But the White House even tweeted it out a couple times. And then they get so up in their dumb heads because they're complete idiots, and they think they're just going to go all the way with it. And that's for sure what they were thinking that they were going to kind of signal at when that terrible speech came out this week. They were
That's
signaling
the only
Dark
way.
Brandon.
That's the only way they could have made that flop, is if they think that they're appealing to the Dark Brandon meme, because that's comical.
Yeah.
Like if that were a set on a movie I was watching that wasn't a comic book movie, I'd be like, this is too comic booky, man. That's
So like it's like something out of like a Christopher Guest mockumentary. Like if you wanted to be like, oh, we're doing a political campaign and we want to look friendly, don't screw this up. And there would, like there'd be a series of unfortunate events and incompetency, and it would end up looking like that. Yeah, no, it's one of those things where it's like, because I always want to like give them the benefit of the doubt and be like, I don't know, like maybe like all the blue gel filters were taken for something else. Like yeah, they're just like on the night, like, oh, all we got is red, sir. But no, like I just have like that level, at every part of that somebody had to sign off on. So it's like, Jesus, what were you thinking? Because
which means that now 4chan is working on. They got to be working on like a good lefty meme that will make they'll like pair Biden with a swastika. So it'll be like the next one will have like a bunch of swastikas in the background because 4chan will convince them that that's their cool meme now.
You know what I just barely learned and annoys me that I never knew before is that like because the Nazi symbol isn't a swastika. A swastika is an ancient religious symbol. Swastika is a Sanskrit word. But like the Nazi symbol is the swastika on that white circle. And I never knew the circle was originally represented as a cog, and it represented the Union, like because the communists, like their symbol was just, industry and agriculture, that union. The Nazi symbol, like the swastika, represented spiritualism unified with industry. And that's what that's all about. That's that symbolism there, is to take that, the national myth of the Aryan Übermensch or whatever, and the great German nation, and marry that to socialism, and I mean, it's just kind of, I don't know. I just barely learned that, and I don't even know where, somewhere on a documentary somebody pointed that out, but I never even knew that that's what that was about.
So this is another one that's just been going around lately, and CNN even admitted to it.
So this is a guy who's been doing this for years. He's also been in government for 47 years before he was president, but now he's going to fix everything. It's rather extraordinary. I don't know what he was doing for those first 47 years. Anyway, here he is this past weekend lying about his history with the civil rights movement.
I got very engaged, in my case, in the civil rights movement. And as a kid, I worked a lot in the movement and I got deeply involved in the Democratic Party because the Democratic Party in Delaware was a Southern Democratic Party then. We were more a Southern state than a Northeastern state. And I got involved and one thing led to another. And one day a group came to me of the senior members of the party and said they wanted me to run for the Senate.
Okay, so Joe Biden, big civil rights hero. That's odd. I mean, he did give the eulogy to Robert Byrd. Remember Robert Byrd, former head of the KKK? Sure, he gave the eulogy at his funeral, but okay, he was always marching with the civil rights people and doing all this civil rights stuff, despite the fact that Delaware was kind of a southern state or something like that. Well, actually, for years, people have been debunking the nonsense that Joe Biden was out there as a young man on the lines, marching and doing all this civil rights stuff. This is CNN back in 2019 debunking some of the nonsense.
He lied to voters, according to the New York Times, quoting aides of Biden's, about having marched in the civil rights movement. This is Biden making this false claim in 1987.
When I marched in the civil rights movement, I did not march with a 12-point program. I marched with tens of thousands of others to change attitudes.
And the New York Times reports, quote, more than once, advisors had gently reminded Mr. Biden of the problem with this formulation. He had not actually marched during the civil rights movement. And more than once, Mr. Biden assured them that he understood and kept telling the story anyway.
Just another one. So
that's crazy to me. Anytime that Robert Byrd gets brought up, I always have to look up, wait a minute, he died pretty recently. Yep, 2010. While Biden was vice president to the first black president.
They'll point out they'll say that he had a change of heart later in his life. The Burt guy did. So that's what the argument against that one is generally.
But also, like, I mean, because that's thinking like, oh,
but he worked with him back before he had the change of heart too. But
yeah, but the other thing though, like, because again, I just looked up the Louis Farrakhan's most recent political endorsements. Like to this day, every Democrat that runs for president wants Louis Farrakhan's endorsement. They won't say no to it, you know. And like Republicans will routinely and openly repudiate any endorsement from any racist organization. Meanwhile, like again, like when Aretha Franklin died, it was like a picture, and Louis Farrakhan is in the front and center. Just like, how is that okay? How's that okay?
So many times for political purposes, because he always uses it for political bludgeon. Joe Biden talks about a drunken driver killing his wife. It's not true. The person who the accident, the guy.
No, it's a mixture.
The guy, they were killed in an accident. The guy wasn't drinking. He hadn't been drinking. He asked for a cease and desist many times that he stops telling the story that he had been drinking when it happened.
Oh, so you mean accident. It's a lie? It's not a mixture of truth.
It's not a mixture.
Flat out lie.
Yes, there was a wreck. No, there wasn't. But that's one of the ways these guys lie and make all their stuff phony. Because like everybody else will go and look at these cronies who fact check everything and say, "Oh, it says mixture of truth. It's half true," and they'll stop reading from that.
I feel like the like hundreds of hours I've spent listening to apologetics. Well, see, here's the thing: when you're ex-Mormon, when you leave the church, you listen to a lot of apologists. And maybe people don't. I don't know. That was the thing I found the most interesting. That was the whole thing that made it all crumble for me. Is I didn't even look at the CES letter. I just I went and looked at like the Fair Mormon site, and they had all their issues listed out and all their answers to them, and the apologetic answers. And I was like, oh my God, these are dog shit. And that was the most interesting part to me is learning apologetics. And it blows my mind that ex-Mormons are not somehow like uniquely equipped to see apologetics in action. And that's what that is. That Snopes article you showed us, where it's like, oh, Biden said his wife was killed by a drunk driver. He's always saying that. Is it true or not? Well, it's kind of true because she died in an accident. He wasn't drunk, So, you know, it's a wash.
So who's to say? Who's to say? Who's to say? But the
well, you're to say, fact checker.
So Anita Hill, the Anita Hill hearings, Biden was presided over those. That whole entire thing, and a lot of people said, well, they'll refer to that moment in time. They'll say it was like a modern day lynching, right? What they did and claimed of Clarence Thomas, and you'll still have a lot of leftists try to hold on to it. Which the ultimate thing that they have is that Anita Hill said that he talked about porn and he put a pube on her coke.
We know exactly what's going on here. And to pretend that it's for some other reason, stop. Do I have like stupid written on my back, the back of my shirt? I mean, come on, we know what this is all about. This isn't about what they say it's about, so people should just tell the truth. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed. Just say it. Then now at least we're honest with each other.
He knew he was going into the trial of his life with the Senate, run by the Democrats.
The hearing will come to order.
We knew it was in the lion's den.
Good morning, Judge. Welcome to the blinding lights. Finding out what you mean when you say that you would apply the natural law philosophy to the Constitution is, in my view, the single most important task of this committee.
Senator Biden was very focused on natural law. How did that go?
Who knows? I have no idea what he was talking about.
I just want to make sure we all know what we're talking about here, that you and I know at least what we're talking about here. There's a fervent and aggressive school of thought that wishes to see natural law further inform the Constitution than it does now, argued against by the positivist led by Judge Bork. Now, again, that may be lost on all the people. You know and I know what we're talking about.
I have to be perfectly honest with you. You sit there and you have no idea what they are talking about. All I know is that he was asking me these questions about natural law.
Someone may apply it in a way, like Moore, who leads him in a direction that is, quote, liberal. You may apply it in a way that leads you in a direction that's conservative. Or you may, like many argue, not apply it at all. But it is a fundamental question that is going to be almost impossible for non-lawyers to grasp in an exchange. But you know and I know it is a big, big deal. And in conclusion,
one of the things you do in hearings is you have to sit there and look attentively at people you know have no idea what they're talking about.
The thing is, too, is just like this other Blasey Ford stuff, she followed him around to jobs for years. Like, he went to another place and she followed. He went to another place and she followed. It was a bunch of bullcrap.
Dangerously close to victim blaming right now.
Yeah. So this Anita Hill situation is what radicalized Breitbart. Breitbart said this, like our moment was Kavanaugh, his moment was Anita Hill, and it was
so
the exact
you're talking
same
specifically
thing.
about Andrew Breitbart, not Breitbart.
And yeah, Andrew Breitbart, the guy, the man.
I started watching the hearings, wanting to root for the takedown of Clarence Thomas. I watched the television set, and the television set told me that this was a bad man, and the newspapers told me that he was a bad man. I remember Eleanor Smeal, I remember Patricia Schroeder walking up the steps, these ladies, and saying, this guy, we're going to take a stand against this guy for sexual harassment, serial sexual harassment. So I watched these hearings like a spectator who wanted to see somebody mauled, like lions mauling, Romans. And I watched day one, I watched day two, I watched the entire thing. I went from wanting him to be taken down to wondering, where's the beef? What's going on here? I don't understand what I'm watching here. I don't understand the color commentary that's on the screen. where they're saying, oh, this is outrageous. And I didn't understand the bumper stickers that were going by me on the streets saying, I believe Anita. I said, I believe Anita what? What's going on here? I don't understand what's going on here. Everything that I knew, everything that I picked up at college in my American studies, cultural Marxist, oppressor oppressed, black people are always right, white people are always wrong. I didn't understand how Ted Kennedy, the Ted Kennedy of Chappaquiddick fame, how Howard Metzenbaum, Joe Biden, and a series of white privileged men could sit in judgment of this man who was the son of grandparents who were sharecroppers who raised him, and he went to Yale Law School. He did everything right, including allowing for Anita Hill to rise through the ranks of the legal profession, through jobs with him, where she never had a sexual relationship with him at all. He did nothing untoward, and she was party to this takedown. And I did not understand how it could be that these white people of privilege were attacking this black man who was in this historic position while the mainstream media took him down.
Okay.
And he was actually somebody who helped Ariana Huffington create her website. He was a young leftist kid. And when he watched these Anita Hill things go down, that's when he said, screw you guys. I'm never voting for any of you guys ever again. That was outrageous what you guys just did to that man. The smearing, just they call it burking because they did the same thing to another guy earlier. And Biden was the lead guy in the Senate over both of those complete highway bullshit things. Well, it also comes out years later that there is a claim in the moment of it that he was finger blasting one of his staffers right in the middle of the whole entire thing. This one is way more credible than the Kavanaugh one. The lady said that she and her mom had tried to report it, and her mom even brought it up and called in to a national radio station, asked what she can do
Larry
about
King.
it. And you can even go listen to the exact thing from the time frame that they were doing it.
All right, turning to the 2020 campaign and why a video from 1993 is part of today's political discussion. CNN national political correspondent MJ Lee joining us now. So MJ, tell us how this video could relate to a sexual assault allegation made against Joe Biden dating to that time when he was a senator. And first of all, MJ, can you bring us up to speed on the allegation itself?
Well, Fred, a woman named Tara Reid, she was an aide for then Senator Joe Biden in the early 1990s. She recently alleged that Joe Biden had sexually assaulted her many years ago. And CNN interviewed Reid for the first time on the phone last night. And she says that sometime in 1993, that she was asked to deliver a duffel bag to then Senator Joe Biden, and that inside of a corridor, somewhere inside the Capitol Hill complex, that Biden had her up against a wall, used his knee to spread open her legs, and put his fingers inside her. Now, the Biden campaign denies this allegation, and we will discuss sort of their full response in just a few minutes.
And is there corroboration of Reid's story?
Well, what's important is that several media outlets, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, they have done some extensive reporting on this allegation and story. And the New York Times says that they spoke with a friend of Reid's who told the Times that Reid told her about this alleged assault at the time that it happened. They also spoke with a second friend who says that Reid told her in 2008 about Biden touching her inappropriately. The Washington Post also spoke with Tara Reid's brother, who initially told the Post, quote, "I heard that there was a gym bag incident and that he was inappropriate. I remember her telling me he said she was nothing to him." Now, interestingly, several days later, according to the Post, Tara Reid's brother got back in touch with the paper and said that he did remember her saying that Biden had put his hands under her clothes. They also spoke with some other women who had previously also said that they felt uncomfortable with some of the physical interactions that they had with Joe Biden, though very important to note, none of them accused him of sexual assault. All of these women that the Times reached out to said that they didn't have anything new that they wanted to add about the experiences they had, though several of them did tell the Times that they believed Tara Reid's new allegation.
Now, MJ, so how does Reed's mother factor into all of this?
Well, Tara Reid's mother is a key figure in all of this because she is the one other person that Tara Reid says she told about the alleged sexual assault at the time. Now, she died a few years ago, so she is not somebody who can speak and corroborate any part of this story now. But what surfaced last night was a segment on CNN's Larry King Live from 1993 that appears to feature Tara Reid's mother's voice. Let's just watch that first, and then we can talk about it.
Yes, hello. I'm wondering what a staffer would do besides go to the press in Washington. My daughter has just left there after working for a prominent senator and could not get through with her problems at all. And the only thing she could have done was go to the press, and she chose not to do it out of respect for him.
Or she had a story to tell, but out of respect for the person she worked for, she didn't tell it.
That's true.
And so, just to be clear, let's compare. Like Blasey Ford's accusation was, it was at a party. I don't remember exactly when. I don't remember exactly where. I don't remember exactly who was there, except for one person who, when asked, says they don't remember that event ever happening. That was the strength of Blasey's accusation. Meanwhile, like with Biden, no, to be clear,
you're leaving out
all
one
we
part.
have is an accusation.
The extent of it is that he pushed her on the bed and kind of started grabbing.
Well, that's the other thing. Oh yeah, and that she was basically roughhoused and dry humped for a few
Not
seconds.
even dry humped. It was like he just kind of grabbed at her.
Like, there's very little. Yeah.
One of my arguments, that whole entire thing is like, first off, it's probably not true. A bunch of people said that, like, her friends said it never happened.
Yeah.
Her friends said, I don't remember that. And I don't remember going over there. He had his whole calendar from the whole summer saying this moment never happened, all that sort of stuff. But there's another line of it where I said, well, we could also say this whole moment happened, but if we all got to watch an actual video of it, we got to be flies on the wall and actually watch the video, that maybe the guy bumped into her when he was drunk and said, oops, sorry, and pushed her. And maybe even the moment happened and it wasn't even Kavanaugh because it was some party when you're 17 and you're drunk. It was just nothing. And when it was reviewed by the whole entire special hearing, which, remember, during that special hearing, there was leftists banging on the walls of the Supreme Court, trying to stop a democratic process. And cornering senators. We have an
actual racist, or actual rapist.
Cornering senators in elevators to get them to change their mind on stuff, because the whole thing was just going to go away until they cornered that one senator from Arizona who was a Mormon. And so he voted the other way after he got cornered in an elevator by a bunch of activists.
Let's listen to Jeff Flake.
Yes, I understand that you said just last night you felt that the witness was in fact credible.
On Monday, I stood in front of your office with Addie Barkan. I told the story of my sexual assault. I told it because I recognized in Dr. Ford's story that she's telling the truth. What you are doing is allowing someone who actually violated a woman to sit in the Supreme Court. This is not tolerable. You have children in your family. Think about them. I have 2 children. I cannot imagine that for the next 50 years, they will have to have someone in the Supreme Court who has been accused of violating a young girl. What are you doing, sir?
Oh, no insurrections here. They were banging on the walls of the Supreme Court.
These are live images, folks, at the doors of the Supreme Court, where you can see protesters have gathered. They are demanding that their voices be heard as they anticipate the person who will be a new Supreme Court Justice, Judge Brett Kavanaugh, to be sworn in here any moment. In a bigger picture, you can see approximately how many people who have gathered there. It looks like there are dozens, and they are chanting.
That whole entire thing goes down. I mean, it was just complete bullcrap. After the special investigator looked into it, she says, you don't even have like a case here to start a case. Like this wouldn't get past. This wouldn't get past.
Couldn't even get a grand jury to indict on that.
Yeah, It was such bullcrap, man. But then still floated in the media with stuff even worse than that. The gangbang accusation and another one of them.
And then like one of my friends, funny, one of my friends who introduced me to John Locke as a teenager. Like we went to junior high together, and like the Age of Reason. Like I was a young Mormon kid, and he was like a liberal atheist that was trying to talk me out of my weird conservative beliefs. And then fast forward to him, and he's posting on Facebook where he's like, Kavanaugh was a blackout drunk.
Oh,
holy shit!
Wow!
Like really? Like you're really running with this, just like that. You really think that guy, like he's a blackout drunk who also happened to be this like enormously hardworking, successful, legal career guy.
What was
the
quote he said? Was it just like I liked beer or something like that? Or was that...
Well, no, because they kept saying like because like in his diary he wrote like beer day where I'm drinking beer. And people like tried to make it out like, well, that proves it. Like it proves that he was a blackout drunk, and it proves that he's a rapist. It's that simple.
It makes me
teenage boy
excited about drinking beer.
Was excited
it
to drink
makes
beer.
me think of like the false sense of piety, like the condemnation to elevate yourself, right? Makes me think of that awesome South Park episode where it's the Tiger Woods ones. It might be my favorite episode. I don't know, where like they find out Tiger Woods cheated on his wife with like a bunch of supermodels or whatever. And the entire episode is just all these guys like, I don't understand how a person with all of this, like just because he has all of this money, why he would possibly cheat on his wife. Because it's just all these guys saying, I wouldn't do it. They're trying to tell their wives, I wouldn't do it. Like, okay, yeah, but you don't have a million supermodels at your disposal. Okay, you don't have women throwing themselves at you. That's a great Norm Macdonald joke where he talks about how Tiger Woods is the most faithful man of all time.
I was gonna say, you know how we know that Brett Kavanaugh, like, because like if the Democrats wanted to fake the Brett Kavanaugh journal, it would immediately be given away because it wouldn't say like, oh hooray beer. They would like be like, oh hooray Chateauneuf de Pop. A left bank Bordeaux. Just they'd have to throw that in there. Like you know it's real because it's just regular New England kid stuff.
Remember Matt Damon's Saturday Night Live Kavanaugh?
Oh yeah.
Matt Damon did Kavanaugh for Saturday Night Live.
Matt Damon.
Same claim today to me. I'd be scorched earth. I don't care if it costs me $10 million to fight this in court with you for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
You are not taking my name from me.
Mm-hmm.
You are not taking my name and my reputation from me.
2017?
That was before.
Oh, wow. I was going to say.
False accusation of who?
Him.
He was just saying if somebody made a false accusation on me.
I was just thinking that I wish that Brendan Fraser and Matt Damon would switch. I want to see young fit Brendan Fraser again and big fat Matt Damon just for fun.
Be great. He's in a couple movies where he's fat. Fat Damon. Jesse Plemons.
Yeah. So that whole entire thing, it's one of the things I pointed out for DeLynn in the whole entirety of the left, because we all actually know what the truth of their hypocrisy is that you got the wrong politics, you're guilty. You got the right politics, we'll overlook it. Overlook terrible things. What's the repressive tolerance, once again, which we typically will say the repressive tolerance is left-wing violence is okay, right-wing thought it's got to be shut down. But the repressive tolerance on sexual harassment allegations is right-wing, even hints of it, it's 100% true. Left-wing proofs and obviousnesses of it get overlooked and
it's Republicans bounce.
Yeah.
Republican bounce on Democrats convicted of sexual indiscretion.
So this was
I'm going to start at an 11. I'm going to take it to about a 15 real
scorched earth, right, Matt Damon? Scorched earth.
quick. First of all, I showed this speech to almost no one.
Scorched earth, Matt Damon.
Yeah. I can't believe this guy's mad that everyone in the country thinks he's a rapist.
Like it was funny because it was like a year after the Kavanaugh thing that I got Disney Plus. My phone service was like, hey, you get Disney now. So I'm like, okay. So I watched all the old Simpsons, in the classic episode where Homer is accused of sexual harassment. And there's that thing where the lady says, like, you know, the accuser, a woman, like, you know, interview was like, I've never met Homer Simpson, but I'm convinced he's a terrible person. She's crying. And then, you know, you hear, I think it's Helen Lovejoy say, her tears say more than real evidence ever could.
I don't know Homer Simpson. I never met Homer Simpson or had any contact with him, but I'm sorry, I can't go on.
That's okay. Your tears say more than real evidence ever could.
Yeah. And that was like 1993. And then fast forward, and that was literally what they're saying on the TV. Is like, oh, we know she's telling the truth because she's crying.
What's also funny because that's why we know he isn't telling the truth. We know she's telling the truth because she cried, and he's lying because he cried.
And it was the same thing with the Kyle Rittenhouse. Like, that thing was like, the Rittenhouse case was especially egregious because there was video evidence available to the universe immediately, and like that thing's like Reddit, like case shut within an hour. Like Reddit had like the breakdown, they had it all like sorted out within an hour. But then like
I watched that shit.
He cried. He's clearly a murderer.
Like, that one, I was for sure within 3 seconds. No, like this moment's not right. And
but then especially once you get like a year later or whatever, once you get to the court case, that's the best benchmark for somebody that's on the left being a reasonable person, is because that is such an open and shut case. That is just
really
like
was.
It's so rare for me to be like nearly 100% certain about anything, but I feel 100% certain that like Rittenhouse, unbelievably justified. And I remember like,
even if you can get them to acknowledge the basic facts, they immediately jump to the victim wearing, like, well, look what he was wearing and look where he was.
I know, like that's the thing that's in a
if he didn't want to be assaulted by violent rioters, he shouldn't have dressed there. He shouldn't have gone there looking like that. Like, oh, you don't say.
Well, he had an illegal gun. I was like, okay, but like if a woman has an illegal knife, and like if she's not allowed to have a knife, she takes it into a place, crosses state lines where she's not supposed to go, and somebody tries to rape her, and she stabs the guy, like.
But
self-defense no longer justified because it was illegal for you to have that self-defense instrument in the first place. So,
but to stress, the gun didn't cross state lines. It literally wouldn't matter if it had. It would make no difference.
And crossing state lines is like a 20-minute drive. Like I get angry about this shit because the lefties.
Well, there's the whole. I mean, what's an actual justice warrior has got the supercut of Anna and the state lines thing.
The Cross State Lines compilation. Here you go.
Wouldn't go out of his way to go to a protest, who crossed state lines. He drove from Illinois to Kenosha, Wisconsin. Now, again, he drove from Illinois to Wisconsin. It's not like he was in his front yard. And he was approached by a group of individuals who posed an imminent threat to his life. He drove across state lines in a state that he doesn't even live in, because obviously we're dealing with a 17-year-old from out of state. And then he crossed state lines with it. He crossed state lines, meaning he traveled across state lines. He traveled there from out of state, who again traveled across state lines. So he did not cross state lines with an illegal gun.
And it really is like, I mean, it's one of those, like, there are no transitional fossils thing where it's like, it's a mantra you repeat because of how not true it is.
Yeah.
The cross state lines is one of those things where it's like, I know Kyle Rittenhouse is a murderer because crossed state lines. That's all the logic you need there.
I know. I like yell at people when they say that shit. I get like angry. I get fired up. Some dude at work during this whole thing was like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was justified. Oh, fuck off. Okay.
Like, because that's things like, like that's the part that doesn't matter. Like, that is the secondary part. Like, we need to get over the first part where it's like, no, he was totally justified and he was smeared in the media and his life has been destroyed because of a lying media. Like, that kid's life, I mean, one of Babylon B's home runs was with, like, Kyle Rittenhouse sentenced to 40 years of CPAC appearances.
Yeah.
Because, like, where's that kid? Where can that kid work now? He can be a conservative pundit.
That's what he's gonna have to do, pretty much.
But like, this is the great heartbreak. Is like, if there's ever somebody that we wanted to be a cop, is a Kyle Rittenhouse. Like Kyle Rittenhouse should have stayed home that day and stuck to his stuff and become super cop that we never heard of and was just local good cop because that's what
He's
he
like
would
a
have
crack shot and
Yeah.
like perfectly amazing under
Oh, like,
pressure.
Because he's a Boy Scout. The kid's a Boy Scout. He just wants to do good.
That
He
was
wants
so
to do
comical
good.
to me. Like when they were going through the stuff, like, oh my God, that I watched that trial every moment of it that I could. I watched it, and holy shit, like it again felt comical. Like he's a Boy Scout, he's a volunteer firefighter, he's a junior cadet, he's all of this shit. And then the worst thing they found on him was when Binger brought up that old profile that he had where his username was 4 doors more whores. I'm like, holy shit, that's the worst you got on this kid.
Yeah.
So moving on, Biden backed every ounce of Bush Cheney, all the way down, all the way through. For 8 years, almost everything that the left hallucinated about and lost their minds just as hard as they lost for Trump was about how bad Bush and Cheney were about those wars. So if you hated Bush and Cheney that bad for 8 years, you also hated Biden. He is lockstep and still is lockstep with neocons, with foreign policy. Always has been, always will be. That's a uniparty, the way those guys view the way that foreign policy should be done.
That's a funny
neocons now aren't part of MAGA. One of the only things, one of the only reasons I ever could even start dreaming of thinking of getting back on the conservative or right-wing side is because the neocons got pushed out of there.
Yeah.
Let's see, he was a credit card crony, which means a lot for years. People just knew him as the guy who backed up the banks and the credit card companies for every single one of their new policies that they wanted to pass, and for them to push people out of like bankruptcy, being able to declare bankruptcy. He wanted to remove all the chances.
Remember the subprime credit world? That wasn't just real estate. It was all the credit markets.
And
I
Biden,
went for briefly at the end of my 5 years as my nightmarish career in my 20s as a bill collector, I ended up at a major international bank and I collected on subprime auto loans. And God, I can tell you about predatory lending.
And Biden was their guy. Biden was there.
Biden's a big fan of that.
Not just a big fan. He was the main. Do I have it on the right screen?
Here's a way to put it. Here's a way to put it for our generation and our time and place and our audience. My leftist friends, everything that you hated about Orrin Hatch, that's Joe Biden.
Yep, here it is. Vox pointed out for you. You know, good old Vox. 20-year argument between Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren, who's maybe not even as left wing as your boy Bernie, all that y'all loved. Huge rift in this one specific area. But that's just good old Joe.
He's the good guy now.
He was known as the credit card lobby taker, the taker of money. That's where I got all his money. I just read this thing the other day that his wife is already, her net worth has already gone up from 12 million to 50 million just in the time since they've been in office.
Jesus.
Yeah, crazy how that stuff happens. His whole family, his brother and Hunter, they are just opportunists and always have been all the way hold down. I don't think they have any principles whatsoever. I don't think they got into politics for anything except for enrichment. And that also makes them dangerous because they can just kind of get to rise to the top. They will be the cronies of whatever people want them to be crony. Like, I don't think he has any principle on anything. He was the one who unmasked General Flynn. What that means is he was the one going through people's phone calls during the whole entire time frame of the transition after you say peaceful transitions. You're talking about peaceful transitions. You hallucinate and turn red-faced about peaceful transitions. During the whole entire transition, Biden was unmasking the phone calls between Trump and his people who were talking to other nations, which every single administration ever does. And they were looking into that to start a new case to try to sabotage the incoming, start a whole entire, I heard somebody else call Dave Smith in that debate, who was debating against Trump being good, also said that whole entire thing, the way that all went down was nothing short of a coup. It was nothing short of a coup. Shut up with your peaceful transition crap.
Yeah.
This is the biggest lie.
Election denial was patriotic to be an election denier for that period of time.
I hate that.
This one is one that Victor Hansen will go a whole lot into. Nice tweets. He was never nice tweets. Biden has a career of gaffes and a career of being a prick to people. Like that
openly
is
insulting people. Again,
openly
going back
insulting
to the
people,
80s.
saying terrible things to people, saying even a lot of his recent tweets, even you can even point to like his supposedly presidential speech this week. But when he gets hot under the collar, live to a person, this is one of the things I'll point to you about Trump. Trump is surprisingly reserved with the average person. You never heard him harshly go after people who weren't public figures.
Yeah, that's true.
But Biden would bark back. I mean, there's all this stuff like listen
the way,
Jack
Biden,
stuff to all these different people on the trail.
By the way, I'd say that like it's telling that Biden is a huge dick, and that's just that's not anywhere near my list of complaints about him.
Yeah, I don't give a crap about that either. But I don't give a crap about
people's biggest complaint about Trump being a dick.
But one of the main things I have
Biden's
this down
a dick
here is
too, but
they said the adults were going to be in the room coming. No,
Oh,
never
yeah.
once. Not anyway, not anyhow. If that's on your list, if you want the White House to get more decent, you chose the wrong freaking guy. And you chose the
Yeah.
wrong guy with Hillary too. Like in both of the cases, when people had two freaking options, you're just once again, our bar that we're getting to here is if people weigh one versus the other, you really can't blame either one of them. You know.
It was like that half
act
a
like
second where it looked like Sam Harris was becoming sane again, where
Yeah.
he retweeted himself from a year ago saying it's great that we have adults in the room. And then during the Iran thing, he's like, I'm eating these words one by one.
I mean, this really is the power to me, though, of I mean, ideological possession, religion. Because, like, you know, I always want to tell, like, my lefty friends, you know, when I'm like, I want to talk to them, it's like, you know how you aren't conservative. And you can watch Fox News, not that they actually do, but pretend they did. You can watch Fox News, and as someone who's not conservative, you can see the conservative bias. It's obvious. It's everywhere. They're not trying to hide it. Not, you know, it's just clear. I agree because I'm not a conservative, so I can see that Fox News is clearly biased. Now, I am not a lefty. So when I look at the New York Times and the decisions of Facebook and Google, you know, like, I'm not a lefty, so I can see, just like with Fox News, I can see the bias, and it's obvious and it's clear. And you can't see the bias, and there's a reason for that. And it's because you're on the team, and like it's amazing. Like, why do we have to explain that Joe Biden is a piece of shit when that was pretty well understood, even on the left, up until he was the Democratic candidate, literally, because like even as a vice president, he wasn't particularly popular.
If they had the media catastrophizing every one of his gaffes the way they did anything Trump even winked at, they would all get it. But they almost need the media to make it something to hyperventilate about.
That's one of those things that's magical to me. Is like, as like somebody that doesn't have the 1984 Orwellian brain, where it's like all of a sudden Biden was a good, nice candidate that the Democrats liked.
A return to normalcy.
So
normalcy, like he's
normalcy.
Just
the Ukraine quid pro quo. That was
foreign enrichment.
Impeached.
These next three are all foreign
Trump
enrichment.
was impeached over like what was it? Like a low-level operative claimed to have overheard somebody having a conversation about something they claimed to have overheard.
He said that Trump
Meanwhile,
wanted...
we have video of Biden is on video bragging about doing what they impeached Trump for the first time.
And what the thing that Trump was asking for was info about Biden and Ukraine. So they said, "Oh, he's digging up dirt. He's digging up dirt on his opponent. You guys don't dig up dirt on your opponent. You're going for fishing expeditions on your prime opponent." And even at the time frame, Biden was not declared as the prime opponent.
You can probably cut in the video of Biden on wherever that talk show is, where he literally brags about negotiating with the Ukrainian officials, saying, "I'm in charge. I'll withhold whatever this money is, this aid, unless you do what we're asking."
I remember going over convincing our team, or others, to convincing us that we should be providing for loan guarantees. And I went over, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, what, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
These three things,
which was what, investigate
Hunter's laptops, as good as the
no,
dossier, only it was
wasn't
real.
it to drop
China's,
the investigation into the Hunter oil Burisma thing?
Yep.
Jesus Christ!
And the details
It's
of it
so
too is like
crooked.
We have some private investigators who've gotten into all that stuff, and you can go down a whole entire rabbit hole with all that sort of thing. But all of these things, these two things, the 2 times Trump was impeached, each one of those things have all the smoking guns of being the actual thing of all that stuff.
Yeah.
Only we'll never, ever, 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 ever get investigations into any of it. Not
what is the actual evidence of Trump's corruption? Because everybody just scoffs and goes, obviously.
There's a reason that Sam Harris brought up
one of the only specific claim of corruption.
In the office, nothing. He was too watched.
Outside of that. Like,
he was too watched. Outside of it, there's a
oh.
reason Sam Harris brought up that university, because they think that university was kind of scandalous, just in the sense of it being just kind of like a bad deal and then collecting the money. And
yeah, well, that's not anything unique to Trump.
Then there's a couple times where they'll point to saying that some project managers or superintendents or whatever he sued them out of paying them or something like that, and they have their own stories, and you never even got to hear Trump's side of the story for that. Those are the couple of corruptions that I know of. Let's ask. How about any of you? Come on, tell us. Like, come explain to us. Like,
First off, what's allegation against Joe Biden is that he's
been enriching off of the office for 50 years.
Like, his son, who has no reason whatsoever to have the position, was given, what was it, $60,000 a month as a board member of a Ukrainian oil company, while Joe Biden was the vice president, and bragging about using his leverage to get what he wants. Like, just any. What is the explanation for that?
There's all sorts of types. He had a business partner who came out and said that Joe Biden was definitely involved with it. He was the big guy on the laptop.
Yeah.
He said that he never met or knew anything about that. And then you have those people use that Nickelback picture. Like, look at this photograph of Biden meeting with the people from China and all that stuff in Ukraine that he said he never met or never knew anything about. The guy's been enriching off the office the entire time. The credit card
pretty
stuff
boring to
and these foreign things. And you thought that Trump was maybe in trouble for it, or not in trouble, that Trump was compromised for all that stuff. Like, Biden, how is Biden not compromised for all this stuff?
It gets pretty.
I like the claim. I heard so much that, like, talking about just 1984 things where people just say things that become true. Is that I keep hearing the claim that Trump was the bomb droppingest president ever, or whatever, like all this stuff. Was like I've tried to look that up.
I think Obama droned more. I mean, it depends on what. There's always some way with statistics you can alter it around and say, well, he's the only one who dropped the mega bomb.
Like, Trump is objectively the only president in my life who did not start or expand a war.
So the crazy thing to me is how often I get just bored of pointing out double standards.
Yeah,
it's like they try to live life at a constant double standard to the point where you pointing out double standards seems cliche.
Part of the society.
So it's like you point out, if you try to point out to people like the danger of the whole, like, just believe the victim thing, is that, okay, that means that every time somebody is accused, we have to believe them. You understand that? I don't think you do understand that, because you only seem to apply it to one side of the fence. Because then when Biden is accused of a lot of things, with evidence, but evidence doesn't matter, because we believe the accusation. We believe the accuser, the victim.
Because like a question I have, if anybody's answering, is what about her emails? Like, what is the explanation there?
Again,
why
cliche,
did she
give
have
me
a
a
private server?
practical-
Was the private server incompetent?
Don't you know they made a meme and rolled their
Or
eyes
was
at
it,
that? They
like,
made a meme and rolled
yeah,
their eyes at that, so it's taken care
and then,
of.
and then
Okay,
why
boomer. You care
what
about
was
the
with
emails?
dragging your feet? What was with the interference? And you know, because that's the email story for me was something that was kind of interesting because like it was actually a part of my life where I just kind of consciously wanted to just check out. And so when the email thing struck, and for even a couple of years after that, I really just kind of made a point of like, I just don't fucking care anymore. But then I saw the whole meme thing and I went back and investigated. And then I was like, wait a second, what about her emails? Like, this is a serious thing, you know? And like, and you know, and I expected it to be at least like obscure or silly, or like there to be, you know, some basis of justification to the leftist meme of sarcastic, what about her emails? But like, no, like I just came away even more concerned than ever. Like, oh, this is a serious thing.
It makes me think of,
And
again,
we never
South
got
Park.
an answer.
It makes me think again of South Park, where like every time any scene with Scott Malkinson, like he'll bring up a point that annoys them that they don't want to really contend with.
Scott
and
Malkinson,
Cartman,
I have diabetes.
Yeah, I'm Scott Malkinson, I have diabetes. Yeah.
You know, my favorite Scott Malkinson quote. It isn't even when it's not even Scott. It's Eric Cartman where he says, "Diabetes affects everyone, but it mostly affects Scott Malkinson."
But that's what I see, like that.
Which is like I kind of feel like saying patriarchy affects everyone, but it mostly affects Cara Burrell.
Yeah.
That meme you just brought up with the headstone conservatism. That's funny to me because like I picture a husband and a wife, and the wife is just like every time she gets annoyed, she just pounds the shit out of the husband. She punches and punches and punches, and then he goes like, "Okay, let me try to explain why I don't like it when you hit me. Imagine if I hit you." And then she's like, "Oh, imagine if I hit you. I'm Scott Malkinson. I have diabetes." Yeah. and that she thinks that's an own. Like she thinks, "Oh, I got him." This idiot keeps saying,
Yeah, it's fallen on deaf
if I
ears.
hit you, would it not bother you? And she's like,
It's
if
fallen-
I hit you, would it not bother you?
It's fallen on deaf ears. But one of the things I can warn you goofs about is that usually the people who go around saying this, what their point is that, hey, we should start being just as terrible and illiberal to you guys and just be powerful like that too. Yeah. That's their point. And instead of playing by principles and playing by the rules.
Well, that's when the husband finally is like, "Fuck it,
I'll punch you." Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is half of what we've been worried about all this time. Half of wokeness, half of what James Lindsay and us pointing out to those postmodernists, we've always been screaming at is you can get the big bad backlash to this. You can do the Weimar Germany that pushed into Hitler.
No, that's like, because I'm not exaggerating when these, because I was about to say these people think like Nazis. They think like Hitler, because like you create the monster. You say they're so bad. They're doing all of this stuff.
That's what you're doing with Christian nationalism.
If we accept Black Lives Matter on its face, police are the greatest danger to young African Americans and are murdering them for fun, which is a claim that Black Lives Matter and their cronies and we've heard of every iteration of that. Of course, it's justified to kill cops if that's true. And that's the thing is like, you know, if Nazi Zionism is actually true, like if the protocols of Zion are true, like well, yeah, you have to do something about that. It's not true. And that's the thing about the left, the woke left, the patriarchy, like Cara Burrell talking so much about the patriarchy today. It's not real. There is not a giant conspiracy against you and people like you. Like Cara Burrell and Hitler share a belief, which is that there is a segment of society that has created structures of oppression directed at her.
Well, then think of the logical and moral conclusion of your. This is one of my favorite parts of the Brothers Karamazov. There's 4 brothers, and one of them is Ivan, and Ivan is the smartest one. He's the atheist. He's the nihilist, and then there's Smerdyakov. He's like the bastard child, and he's not bright, but he idolizes Ivan. And I guess like spoiler alert for a 150-year-old book, but like Ivan talks about like he tells Smerdyakov about all of his smart ideas and about like how like, oh, our dad's such a piece of shit. Like here's several reasons why it would be better off for the world and be morally justifiable just if dad were to die. So Smerdyakov kills their dad. Like that's that's his whole character. He wants to impress Ivan because like Ivan clearly hasn't thought through. Yeah, well, he doesn't think about like the implications of his ideals, of these things he's trying to put forward, because it's like he doesn't take them seriously and he doesn't really believe them, because if he did, he would kill his dad. But there's somebody out there who's dumb enough to take it seriously. And if you're right, like if a lot of these things are true, if it is true that cops are just for fun killing young black men, then it's totally morally justifiable under like any conceivable moral system aside from like Gandhi's to just kill them.
You should burn down the police stations and the courthouses.
Yeah.
You know, if you believe the lie, you should.
Well, one of the points that the guy brought up to me that sparked this whole entire thing, he said that lady's going to prison for 4 years because she told cops that they were going to die.
Oh yeah, what was that?
Said, well, she's in trouble, and she's not going to go to no prison for 4 years. But he said there's creeping authoritarianism coming from MAGA, and this lady's going to go to jail for 4 years just for speech because she's a protester who said these cops are going to die because she had her brother got killed in Atlanta, and because of the Breonna Taylor case. And the point of it is she went and did what's currently still unlawful and said basically cops were coming to kill you. You're dead. That's what it said. You've died. We're gonna come get you. It's
like,
imminent.
You mean an actual death threat, not
an
one
actual
of those
death
online,
threat.
Like I'm always receiving death threats by MAGA Republicans.
So she got arrested and faced trial for it. It said she got acquitted, but they're gonna relook at it or something like that. And she might go to prison for. She's not gonna go to prison for 4 years.
So does that guy want to defend that? Like
he wouldn't if it was the other shoe on the foot.
Wait, you're saying if there's nothing wrong with that, then post that on Facebook right now. And tag the local police,
or let us.
So his one example, like his example, let me get this straight, was because you were talking about woke authoritarianism, and he responded with, "Well, there's right-wing authoritarianism you don't seem to be worried about, and I'm more worried about it. Here's an example of a woman who threatened to kill a cop and is now getting in trouble for it."
Yeah, no, it's amazing. Like they're dripping over themselves. They can't give us something. No, and it is because like it's a persecution fantasy. It really is a fantasy.
And in the meantime, we can pull up where they're starting to overreach in all sorts of areas for reasons they can throw people in jail or kick them off of platforms or
talking about 2003 atheism, like because one of the dead horses that in 2003 atheism beat to death was this whole thing. It's like, because like I went through my phase where I listened to a lot of Christian conservative talk radio as an atheist, just trying to understand. And like I feel like I listened to it for 10 years and I heard literally everything they have to say. But they were always talking about, oh, Christians are so persecuted. And I was like, come on. You know, like you're a majority religion. You have a major political party. You're hardly persecuted. Don't be ridiculous. And now, like, fast forward to today. And
it's getting there. You know, but they're trying to create
colleges,
it.
Yeah.
They're trying to create it. They're creating that division. They're the ones calling them terrorists.
It's like this whole idea where they say, oh, the most dangerous place in America for a woman is a college campus. Like that is a persecution fantasy.
There is a persecution fantasy.
The same part of the psyche where
the Handmaid's Tale is a persecution fantasy.
Yeah.
That's
the same part of the human psyche where all those ripping romance novels come from is where the idea that 1/4 of women get raped on campus comes from.
Roe v. Wade was a ruling against centralized technocratic laws. It was to spread out the freedom. You each people in your own area, you make your own decisions.
Yeah.
Speaking of persecution fantasies, I saw this great post today on the transgender subreddit where this person
was. Gotta be a place.
Oh God, yeah. It's so what she was essentially saying is that like I can't believe I was just banned from Twitter for like she said that women can, because it was a lesbian woman saying that like women don't like penises, like lesbian women don't like penises, and she responded, this transgender woman responded by saying, well, lesbian women are women who like women, so if they like a woman with a penis, trans woman who is a woman, then yes, lesbians like penis. And her comment was reported. I think she had a bunch of comments reported, and then she was banned from Twitter. And she's like, this is just absolute bullshit. I can't believe they're doing this. And yeah, there's such a safe space. Meanwhile, I reported her comment and it hasn't been taken down. And I'm like, you really think that Twitter is like unfairly biased against left-wing ideologies? You actually, because that seemed to be the complaint.
I caught a 1 month ban on Facebook because I was in an evangelical Mormon debate group, and I just interjected with something about how even Israeli archaeologists Israeli archaeology no longer believes that the Exodus happened. Like there's no archaeological evidence for the story of Exodus. And I got a 1 month ban for anti-Semitism.
Oh my gosh.
Jesus.
So these last couple on Biden here, he lied to people about wanting to stop different energy things. He straight up lied about that stuff in his campaigning, right directly to people who came and challenged him on it. Said he didn't want to stop like the coal burning, and when he did say that he did want to do it, like he said both all the way through.
Yeah.
You can find all that stuff, and then I don't think he ever actually said defending the police, but then he lied that his side ever talked about it. So they'll just keep coming up and saying, we never said that. Nobody ever said that. We said fund the police. That's what we said. That's the type of I call these typical politician lies. But guess what Trump never did? Trump bloviated about his greatness, but Trump didn't really do the typical politician lie. Trump said, I'm going to try to do these things. And those things he tried to do. That's one of the reasons the Daily Wire turned on him, because they were anti-never Trumpers at the start. And after a while, they said, we were never Trumpers because we thought he was full of shit. He wasn't going to try to do any of this stuff. But he actually just came and tried to do all the things he said he was going to try to do.
Yeah.
Now, you can complain about some of those things, like the wall thing. I'm like, I don't want to spend money on a wall. But he said, I'm going to do the wall. Some people want the wall. He tried to do the wall. That's the stuff he did. That's why Ann Coulter hates him now, because he didn't succeed in doing the wall. But
the wall was never.
It's dumb. It's a dumb idea.
So
but
dumb.
He said, I'm going to do that, and he tried to do that. That's just all there is to it.
Yeah, no, that is a point in his favor, just in the sense that, like, at least following through.
Yeah, and getting to the point again.
Okay, but I found out today that Jerusalem had a wall around it.
Oh my goodness!
And so,
dude,
saying that walls are a dumb idea is anti-Semitism. So,
did you see?
Like, nobody talking about, like, Thomas Sowell always talks about how nobody ever has to answer for it. But I was there. I remember I had a lot of conversations with the people around me in 2008 when it was time for Obama, and everybody said the number one reason they wanted to vote for Obama is because he was going to end the war. Remember how Obama was going to end the war? You guys.
That's what I thought about him. I thought it was a vote against the neocons.
And remember how, like, that just kind of, like, what happened to that during the re-election? Like, it sort of morphed into something else there, didn't it?
Yeah. So the Afghanistan, we all know how that. Well, but I mean, I guess that happened after the election. We're talking about pre-election stuff. So the Hillary and that between that election. I mean, well, let's not even start on Hillary, because I mean, Hillary, holy crap!
Jesus.
If anybody in this world thinks,
I love that Norm Macdonald bit where he does about this, where he's talking about, like, he was in an airport and he sees a book that just says Hillary Clinton, what went wrong, and Norm Macdonald's got a whole book about, like, I've never had a cover explain everything so well.
Christopher Hitchens.
I don't need to read the book. It tells
and it's
me
all the way back from like the 90s. Christopher Hitchens had a book about the Clintons called No One Left to Lie To. And they've been at it for 22 more years.
Such a great book.
You know, and it's just 22 more years of that crap they've been at it. And we already got into how they paid for the
Yeah.
you know, for the Christopher Steele stuff and all that whole sort of.
This is one of
deal.
my Stump the Democrat questions. If anybody wants to take a stab at this one, and because I mean, I've asked it on this podcast before, and I don't have an answer, and I've even looked it up. I've tried to figure this out. But what does the Clinton Foundation do? And when they take money from the Saudi royal family, what exactly is that trend? Like, because the Clinton Foundation claims to be advancing gender equality, primarily, among other things.
Yeah.
What does the Saudi royal family expect to get from a feminist organization? Can somebody square that?
I don't know. Maybe Saudi Arabia really likes her hard stance on safe, legal, and rare abortions from the 90s.
Oh yeah, that's Bill Clinton. Oh yeah, you know, that's one of those fun things. Like, I mean, it's getting older in time now, but it's like, do y'all remember that? Okay, quiz for the comments, for if anybody's actually gonna answer this. What year was it that Hillary Clinton came out and officially came out of the closet as in favor of gay marriage?
Oh, wait.
yeah.
Is it like 2018
and let's compare
it was before her election.
Meanwhile, Trump has never given a shit.
I know. He's like,
One way
he's
or the
definitely homophobe, but he's the very first president to enter office being pro-gay marriage.
Well, yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, he's the first person to be elected as pro-gay marriage.
So, you want a Gish Gallop?
Oh God.
Okay.
Rosie O'Donnell is fat. Got him. What do you need a 15 AR for, man? I got nuclear bombs. Drop the bomb. Nuke all the countries, man. Send tweet.
Is it really fair to say that Biden caused the apocalypse? 93% of the day didn't even consist of the world ending.
My main goal is this is how high the bar is. I'm not trying to convince anybody that Trump is great and you should have voted Trump. The bar is Trump voters aren't ontologically evil. That's the bar.
Very willing to let the American public judge my physical and mental my physical as well as my mental fitness. President Trump and the demagogues around the world, that if Donald Trump is reelected, he doesn't want to shed light. He wants to generate heat, and he's stroking violence in our cities. You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black. It don't have nothing to do with Trump. What you all know, but most people don't know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community. Where I come from, you don't get far unless you ask. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. Look me over. If you like what you see, help out. One nominated Democrat, a lifelong Democrat, a proud Democrat, an Obama Democrat. Join us. An Obama Democrat. And, there was, I think that the former senator I heard that familiar voice, you know what I mean, just spoke. Well, he's right about one important thing. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. I'm beginning to see why your wife left you. Why attack standards? Why? You're getting nervous, man. COVID has taken this year, just since the outbreak, it's taken more than 100 years. Look, here's the lives. When you think about it. You know, the rapidly rising I don't know. I just spoke at Dartmouth on healthcare at the medical school, or not. I guess I wasn't actually on the campus, but the people from the medical school were at the. I want to be clear. I'm not going nuts. I'm not sure whether it was a medical school or where the hell I spoke, but it was on the campus. I propose, and I'm going to digress slightly. We're in a situation. The president asked me to head up a cancer moonshot. another country and annexed a significant portion of it called Crimea. He's saying that it was my boss, it was his fault. Guatemala, El Salvador, and to went and say in Honduras and say, look, I took on Putin in terms of Iraq. In terms of what was going on in Ukraine. By strengthening, by investing $100 billion in education, in global warming efforts. It's a whole range of things. We can't afford it by just eliminating, beginning to treat work, reward work as much as wealth. It get hot. I got hairy legs that turn blonde in the sun, and the kids used to come up and reach in the pool and rub my leg down, so it was straight, and then watch the hair come back up again. If you want to protect yourself, get a double-barrel shotgun. Have the shells, a 12-gauge shotgun. They look at it. So I learned about roaches. I learned about kids jumping on my lap. And I've loved kids jumping on my lap. No man has a right to raise a hand to a woman in anger. We have to just change the culture, period, and keep punching at it and punching at it and punching at it. It will be a big... No, I really mean it. And immediately change the law in the state of Delaware protecting transgender people. We have to eliminate the funding gap that exists between minority white and majority white and non-white districts. We have this notion that somehow if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him. Corruption? Trump was out there tweeting again this morning. I call him President Tweety. This guy is moving to foment hate.
You ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but now you got to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you. No, I haven't taken a test. Why the hell would I take a test? Come on, man. That's like saying before you got in this program, if you take a test where you're taking cocaine or not, what do you think, huh? Are you a junkie?
My main goal is this is how high the bar is. I'm not trying to convince anybody that Trump is great and you should have voted Trump. The bar is Trump voters aren't ontologically evil. That's the bar.